Imagine a lonely farmhouse in the cold fields of Wisconsin. Windows dark, doors shut, the silence of isolation pressing down on every wall. For years, no one in the town of Plainfield knew what was happening inside. They only knew that a quiet, withdrawn man lived there, a man who spoke little, smiled rarely, and carried the weight of his dead mother's voice in his head. His name was Gein. Gein was not a monster in appearance. He was unremarkable, almost invisible in his small community. But within his mind, something was unraveling. A childhood of emotional abuse, isolation, and domination by his mother Augusta shaped him into something deeply disturbed. Augusta taught him that women were sinful, that the world outside was evil, and that he could only find safety under her control. When his father died and later his brother, Ede's world shrank even further. And when Augusta finally passed away, Ede was left completely alone on the farm. But in his fractured psyche, his mother never truly left. Her voice haunted him, demanding obedience even from beyond the grave. That voice, combined with his obsessive loneliness, drove him into the depths of psychosis. Ede began retreating from reality. He devoured pulp magazines and lurid tales of Nazis, headhunters, and cannibals. He became fascinated with death, anatomy, and the possibility of bringing his mother back in some form. In psychiatric terms, Ede displayed symptoms of severe schizophrenia mixed with grave personality disorders. His grip on reality was fragile at best. When townspeople disappeared, Plainfield had no idea that the trail of horror led straight to Ede's farmhouse. Police, upon entering his home, were met with the unthinkable. A house turned into a shrine of madness. Everyday objects were twisted into grotesque reminders of death, and signs of his psychological collapse were everywhere. Ede's crimes were not motivated by greed or even sadism in the traditional sense. They were the desperate acts of a man torn apart by delusion, grief, and a consuming mental illness. In court, psychiatrists would later diagnose him as legally insane. He was declared unfit for trial and confined to a mental institution for the rest of his life. There, doctors confirmed what many already suspected. Gein was not in touch with reality. He lived in a distorted world where fantasy and obsession became stronger than reason. Yet, even in confinement, his story spread. Gein became the blueprint for some of horror's most infamous characters. Norman Bates in Psycho, Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. But the true horror is not in what he did alone. It's in how his broken mind shaped his actions, and how mental illness, untreated and ignored, turned isolation into monstrosity. The farmhouse is gone now, burned down by locals who wanted no trace of his presence left. But the legend of Gein remains, a chilling reminder that the human mind, when twisted by trauma and madness, can create terrors far darker than any ghost story. So the question lingers, was Gein simply evil, or was he a man consumed, destroyed, and remade by his own mental illness? The answer lies somewhere in the shadows of his abandoned farmhouse, and in the dark corners of the human psyche itself.